Listen carefully. Everyone talks about the depth of galaxies, the depth of black holes, the depth of space. But no one realizes all of that depth is nothing compared to the depth of the observer. So before we begin, like, subscribe, and let your mind soften, because this is not just a talk. This is a return to your own infinity. The universe isn't deep. We have been trained since childhood to believe the universe is huge, endless, ancient, mysterious, unreachable. But Ibn Arabi flips the entire board upside down. He says the entire cosmos is not the real mystery. The real mystery is the one who is perceiving the cosmos. He says the one who looks at the stars is deeper than the stars. The one who wonders about infinity is already beyond infinity. Because the universe that you think is outside is actually happening inside your awareness. If your consciousness was not present, nothing would be real to you, which means the universe does not exist outside you. The universe exists through you. Matter doesn't give birth to consciousness. Consciousness gives meaning to matter. So the person who only studies the outer world understands only the surface of reality, but the person who studies himself enters the core. Ibn Arabi says, the real cosmos is inside the human being. The outer cosmos is only its reflection. He calls the human being a mirror, and the entire universe is only an image appearing inside that mirror. This is why the mystics are obsessed with inner work. Not because they reject the universe, but because they know the universe has no true depth compared to the depth of the soul that is witnessing it. A black hole collapses matter, but awareness collapses identity. A star burns hydrogen, but awareness burns illusions. The cosmos expands outward, but the human expands inward. That is why galaxies cannot reach the place you can reach through one honest moment of self-recognition. And this is where Ibn Arabi becomes terrifying. He says the person who never turns inward is like a man standing next to an ocean, but dying of thirst because he never dipped his own hands into his own depth. So, the truth is not this. The universe is deep. The truth is this. The universe borrows its meaning from your depth. And the moment you start exploring that depth, the moment you turn your attention from outward fascination to inward revelation, you enter a world where time no longer matters, where identity collapses, where fear dissolves, where ego dies. Before body dies and you discover something shocking, you are not a small temporary creature staring at a massive universe. You are the silent eternal witness inside whom the universe is appearing. That is why the universe isn't deep. You are. The cosmos is not outside you because your entire interaction with reality is happening through the medium of consciousness and awareness and perception and meaning and interpretation. So the physical universe you think you are living inside is actually only accessible to you through the internal field of your subjective knowing, because light hits your retina and then the brain translates signals and electrochemical messages into images and shapes and colors, and the mind then gives meaning to those images, and language attaches labels to the meaning, and therefore what you call the universe is not raw existence, but interpreted existence inside consciousness. So the observable cosmos and a projection and your awareness is the projector, and this is not mysticism only, but also neuroscience and phenomenology and even quantum physics hints that the observer cannot be separated from the observed. So the screen is the external universe, but the real engine is the interviewer. So what we call deep outer reality is actually deep inner awareness, and Ibn Arabi keeps pointing us back to this because he says that existence is always a mirror showing your own level of knowing. So a shallow heart sees a shallow world, and a cluttered soul sees a fragmented universe, and a person who is only stuck in material surfaces sees nothing beyond matter, and therefore believes that the universe is only mechanical matter and forces. But when the inner sight opens, then the universe becomes a revelation, because the world becomes signs, mirrors, signals, reflections, pathways. So, when you discover more meaning in you, the universe reveals more meaning outside you, because the outside is only the reflection of the inside. So, the cosmos is just Argent's symbolic text, and the reader of that text is the self. So, when you evolve inwardly, the script of existence deepens automatically, not because the universe changed, but because you changed. And this is why Ibn Arabi says, "Whoever knows himself knows his Lord, not because the universe is shallow, but because your interface with the universe is shallow until your inner self expands. So the universe is a gate that opens only to the degree your awareness opens, and depth is not in stars and galaxies, but in the faculty that is interpreting stars and galaxies, because a galaxy is only a galaxy when someone is conscious of it, otherwise it is just unrealized possibility. So the human being is not a speck lost inside the universe, but a lens through which the universe becomes conscious of itself. And this is why every conversation about cosmology without inwardness becomes incomplete, because physics can measure distances, but cannot measure meaning, and mathematics can model forces, but cannot model purpose, and science can describe what is happening, but cannot tell why anything is happening. And the reason is because meaning requires an inner witness, meaning requires consciousness, meaning requires awareness. So depth is not in the object, depth is in the observer. And this is the great mistake humanity makes when they chase outer complexity, but ignore inner truth, because they assume the universe is deep, but they themselves are just passive spectators. But Ibn Arabi says you are the depth with which the universe is seen, you are the mirror in which reality becomes readable, you are the conscious field that gives significance to existence. So, when you change, the universe changes, because yourself is the center of interpretation. So if your inner is dark, the universe looks dark. If your inner is bright, the universe looks meaningful. If your inner is empty, the universe looks dead. But if your inner is alive, the universe becomes a living text. So the true journey is not telescope to stars, but insight into the heart, because the depth is not out there. The depth is you, and always was you, and always will remain you. And the only real frontier left is the frontier of inner awareness, and until you evolve that frontier, you cannot know how deep existence actually is, because the universe you see is only the universe your level of consciousness can currently translate, and therefore everything begins with the inner projector, not the external screen, and the cosmos is not outside, but occurring inside awareness. And the true secret is that you are not looking through consciousness, you are looking as consciousness. And that changes everything, because now the universe is no longer something separate, but something continuously arising inside your inner field of knowing and presence and being, not ending. Hario said, "Self-discovery is not about adding something new to yourself, but about peeling away the noise that hides what you already are, because the journey is not accumulation, it is subtraction, not becoming more, but removing the layers that block your own original light." And that is why spiritual work is not about gaining powers or collecting knowledge like trophies, but about dissolving illusions that you mistook as identity, because the ego is a mask, not the face, and the deeper you go, the more you realize that your real nature was always there, hidden beneath cultural programming, family conditioning, fear-based narratives, and survival reflexes. So self-discovery is deconstruction, not construction. And this is the reason Ibn Arabi always returns the seeker back to the self, not in a narcissistic modern self-obsession way, but in the metaphysical way, where self is not the social personality, but the consciousness that is aware of the personality, and the consciousness that is prior to thought, prior to emotion, prior to memory, prior to the story of your life. And when you start seeing this difference, everything changes, because you realize most people only know their biography, not their being. Most people only know their psychological habits, not their essence. Most people know their preference and trauma and history, but not the pure awareness that is watching all of that. So the real work is not fixing the world outside, but cleaning the lens inside. And this is where most humans get lost, because they keep thinking change comes from rearranging external objects, but real change comes from rearranging the meaning inside the observer. And this is why two people can live in the same room, same environment, same world, but one lives in hell and one lives in revelation. The difference is not the world, the difference is the self that is perceiving the world. So the highest knowledge is inner knowing, and this is not poetry, this is direct phenomenology. If you close your eyes, the entire universe disappears, not because the universe disappeared, but because your awareness, the interface through which universe is known, and the instrument of knowing must be refined before the object of knowing can be revealed. So when Ibn Arabi says, "The one who knows himself knows his Lord," he is pointing to the radical fact that as long as your self is shallow, your knowing of reality is shallow, because God, truth, meaning, presence can only be experienced to the depth that your own inner capacity can receive. So the spiritual path is not chasing God outside, but preparing the vessel inside, because the infinite cannot be poured into a cup that is still full of noise, fear, identity, addiction, impulses, ego stories, and unexamined assumptions. So step 1 in real self-discovery is honesty, not performance, honesty before yourself, honesty without defense, honesty without rehearsal. And the second step is silence, not the silence of mouth, but silence of interior. The silence where noise stops pretending to be truth, because most of the time thoughts, not insights, they are echoes of conditioning. Most of the time desires are not will, they are reflexes built by environment. Most of the time identity is not essence, it is a mask built to survive social context. But when silence begins, the false dissolves, because truth does not need noise to exist. Truth simply is, and the more you see your inner noise, the more you see how much of your life is just reaction. So self-discovery becomes revelation, because the more illusions dissolve, the more the original consciousness begins to shine, and that consciousness is not personal, it is universal. The discovery of true self is not about becoming something special, it is about dissolving into something vast, because the original self is not small, it is not isolated, it is not separate, it is a wave of the ocean of existence. So, when that is realized, the boundary between you and universe begins to dissolve, and you understand why the real depth was never outside, it was always in discovering the one who is perceiving the outside. And the more you discover that, the more you realize that real freedom is not in controlling circumstances, it is in mastering the inner reality that interprets circumstances, and that is the core of self-discovery. It is the shift from being a puppet of conditioning to becoming a conscious witness of existence itself, not ending. Hario said, "Galaxies expand outward according to cosmology. Space itself is stretching like fabric, and we marvel at that, because telescopes show us clusters, stars, nebulous black holes, supermassive centers, dark matter halos, and we say, wow, the universe is deep." But Ibn Arabi would gently ask you a question: what is it inside you that is able to perceive this depth? Because the entire universe you admire is arriving to you as an image inside your consciousness. Therefore, the outward expansion of the cosmos is only half the story. The inward expansion of the human is the other half, and that half is actually deeper, because the instruments we use to measure galaxies cannot measure the soul, but the soul is the one measuring galaxies. And if the tool is deeper than the object it measures, then it means your inner dimension is actually vaster than the star fields you think are infinite. For example, a black hole can swallow a star, but a single moment of consciousness can contemplate an entire galaxy cluster in one flash of insight. A telescope sees one region at a time, but your inner awareness can hold 1,000 images in a single moment. Therefore, the inside is not just deeper, it is fundamentally more powerful, because without consciousness, the universe cannot even be known. So, while physics maps expansion through redshift, your heart maps the expansion of meaning, and meaning is wider than matter, because matter without meaning is just atoms, but meaning gives atoms purpose, meaning gives energy direction, meaning gives existence intention. And Ibn Arabi says, the human is not a tiny creature trapped in a cosmic prison, the human is a mirror reflecting the entire cosmos. And that mirror is not glass, it is awareness itself. And when you polish that mirror through silence, presence, observation, sincerity, contemplation, then that mirror becomes capable of seeing reality without distortion. And this is inner expansion, because every time you drop a false belief, your inner space expands. Every time you release a trauma, addiction, fear, identity, your inner horizon expands. Every time you forgive someone truly, deeply, not as performance, but from the core, your inner sky expands. Forgiveness is not ethical, it is dimensional. When you forgive, you gain more room inside you. When you release fear, you gain more light inside you. So the expansion of the human is not spatial, it is existential, and that is more profound than the expansion of galaxies, because galaxies expand only in distance, but humans expand in depth. The outward universe is measured in light years, but the inner universe is measured in consciousness capacity, and no instrument has yet been invented that can map consciousness. Consciousness is the only thing you cannot put in a container, because it is the container, and this is where modern science accidentally touches Ibn Arabi without realizing, because cutting-edge theoretical physics tells us the observer affects the observed, that measurement changes reality, that without observation energy remains probability not formed. So think about this: if the universe needs consciousness in order to become real, then consciousness is not just inside the universe is inside consciousness. So the inward expansion of the human is not poetry, it is ontological priority, and this is why Ibn Arabi said the human has two faces: one is towards creation, and the other is towards the source, and the journey is not traveling billions of light years outside, it is traveling the infinite depth inside, and this is why mystics can sit in one room and travel more than astronauts, because astronauts travel in spatial coordinates, mystics travel in states of being, and states of being are infinite, because they are not limited by geometry. So, the galaxy is not deeper than you, your soul is deeper than the galaxy, and that is why every time you close your eyes and go inward, you are entering the universe beyond the universe, the space beyond space, the silence where the infinite whispers itself into you, not ending here. When Ibn Arabi said the deepest journey is not crossing the world, but crossing the self, he was pointing to one of the most misunderstood truths of existence, because humans assume depth is in distance, they assume wisdom is in travel, they assume enlightenment is in collecting experiences, cities, countries, ideas, philosophies, but Ibn Arabi is saying the real distance is not measured in miles, it is measured in layers of consciousness, because the world out there is only a reflection of the world in here, and if the reflection is distorted, even paradise looks ordinary, and if the mirror is clear, even a small moment becomes revelation. Every outer adventure is only as deep as the inner awareness that experiences it, so a man who goes to 100 countries might still be shallow, because he never entered himself, and another who sits in a small room silently is traveling dimensions no airplane could ever reach. The first uses feet but sees nothing, the second uses awareness and sees everything, and this is why the universe is not the real depth, the observer is the depth, because the universe is objects, but the observer is meaning, and meaning is deeper than matter, because matter cannot interpret itself, matter cannot marvel, consciousness can matter, cannot ask why, consciousness can matter, cannot experience all, consciousness can, and therefore the true laboratory of the infinite is not telescopes, it is inner perception. And modern science is starting to whisper this same reality. Quantum mechanics says the observer collapses probability into form, collapsing the wave into particle, which means reality waits for human perception before it becomes actual. And Ibn Arabi said this 800 years ago: the world becomes real through the knower, and the knower becomes real through the real. So if the world is known through consciousness, then improving the knower is more powerful than improving the world. Polishing the lens is more powerful than changing the scenery, and this is why spiritual masters do not run after life, they refine the inner mirror, because if the mirror is clean, the world appears as divine theater. If the mirror is dirty, the world appears hostile, random, empty, meaningless. So the journey interior, the real jihad, is not fighting others, but fighting illusions inside you, fighting assumptions, conditioning, false identity, ego, reflex, fear, automatic reaction, trauma-based perception. All of these are walls inside the inner galaxy, walls that block the infinite from being seen within you. The real pilgrimage is not to a geographical place, but to the center of your being, and every time you cross a layer of falsehood, you are traveling further than the Milky Way. Every time you notice a lie in your own mind and dissolve it, you are expanding more than the expanding universe. Every time you observe a fear without running away, you are moving closer to the center of your being, because fear is a guardian of depth, ego, a guardian of depth, identity, a guardian of depth. They protect the treasure by blocking the entrance, and only the sincere, who do not turn back, get to enter, and once you enter your own center, you realize something shocking: the universe was never outside you, the universe was happening inside consciousness. When Ibn Arabi said the true depth is the observer, he meant the cosmos is a ripple inside the ocean of awareness. Awareness is not inside the universe. The universe is inside awareness, therefore the journey into yourself is the journey beyond space, beyond form, beyond time, and beyond creation. And this is why he said the perfect human is the bridge between the unseen and the seen, because a human who has known his own depth is no longer limited to the shell. He is no longer imprisoned in biography. He becomes a window to the infinite, a portal to the real, a mirror that reflects the one into the many, and the many into the one, and this is the journey that is more vast than galaxies, because galaxies expand only outward, but the human expands inward without limit, and the one who enters that expansion is no longer just a person. He becomes a witness, a mirror, a locus of manifestation, of the infinite not ending here.